welcome to that Bible Guy. It's great to have you all tuned in today for the continuation of my series on how to find peace. Please ignore the beard. Genuinely have broken my razor. Sorry, Mom. You won't like this. Yeah, I'll get a new one very soon. Starting to annoy me. It's the problem with doing videos. How to find peace. Today's lesson is really an example of the onus. Although God's going to help us, the onus is on us to start with. Two scriptures today. And I suppose you could title this, Letting the Peace of Christ Rule. Letting the Peace of Christ Rule. Colossians 3, verse 15. Sometimes to find peace in life, I think the onus is on us. And that's certainly something that God has shown me recently, which I'll come to in a moment. But Colossians 3, verse 15 says, Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace, and be thankful. And be thankful. So, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. It sounds easier said than done, doesn't it? But I think the idea is that as followers of Christ, Christ is on our minds. He is God in the flesh. He's the one that we follow. Verse 16 it says, the message of Christ should dwell in you richly. So people who are followers of Christ, His word is dwelling in them. They have a deep and close relationship with them. They know Christ. They know what Christ represents. And that's as followers of Jesus what we have. And it's saying, let this peace of Christ, as followers of His, rule in your hearts. Knowing Christ well, knowing Jesus well will bring peace. Remembering His mission. Remembering His words to us in John 14 about not letting your hearts be troubled. How did He deal with His followers? I read this morning about how they argued over who was greater. They denied Jesus and ran away in his time of trouble, and yet He went back to them after He rose again and made them breakfast and reminded them, I forgive you. I know you've messed up, but I'm with you. I forgive you. I don't hold it against you. Even Judas, He served Him and washed His feet at the meal, and He was going to betray Him. So these things about Jesus we know. He's gone off to prepare a place for us. But let the peace of Christ and His life and His mission and who He is rule in your hearts. And the thing about this is, let it rule. We need to let it rule. We have to decide. We decide what rules in our hearts. And what it's saying here is let it rule. We've got peace in our peace of Christ, but you need to let it rule. The decision, you've got to make that decision to say, okay, what rules my heart and my mind? What's the agenda today? What's important today? So the scriptures say, let the peace of Christ rule. Not just think about it now and again, not just meditate on it when you feel trouble coming on, but let the peace of Christ rule. So one of the scriptures I love is to think beforehand, before you enter trouble, how you'll deal with it. And I think this is what applies here. So if we let the peace of Christ rule, it's ruling before the trouble happens. You already believe that your value of your life's not bound up in your money or your status or relationships necessarily. There's more important things that give you value in life. So letting the peace of Christ rule in your hearts before things may go wrong, troubles arrive, you've let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. Psalm 46 verse 10, another one where the onus really is initially on us to get ourselves to God. Psalm 46 verse 10, me and some of my fellow believers share this verse all the time because it's so relevant to us. And it makes me think of Mary and Martha, the story where Mary's busy with all the preparations. Martha was busy with all the preparations and Mary was sitting at His feet. Psalm 46 verse 10, it says, He says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Be still and know that I am God. We have peace. To have peace, we need to know God. Peace comes from knowing God because He's exalted in the nations. He created this earth. He understands why we have a storm in August today. He understands why the coronavirus came and when it will go away. He knows when our life will end, when it started, when it ends. He knows what's going to happen to us. He holds it all in the palm of His hand. He will be exalted. So to have peace, we need to know God. We need to know the creator of this universe, the creator of our souls and our spirits, the creator of our bodies and our life. But what it's saying here, and I love this scripture, is it's saying to know God, and this is hard in this present age, in any age possibly, we need to be still. Knowing God and not being still don't really go together very well. I'm not saying you can't know God at all if you're busy and frantic, but it's certainly more difficult to see God. It's hard to see what you really need sometimes when we're super busy, when there's always stuff going on. When the world is so busy, there's so many distractions for our time, our energy, our thoughts. And this definitely is me. Recently, I've had challenges with just sheer busyness. I'm a hyper-responsible individual. It's a flaw, it's a good thing, and it's a flaw. I take on responsibility for anything I see. I feel responsible for it. Some days have went past where I've been extremely busy, in my mind more so than in reality possibly. And God is saying this to me, Simon, you need to be still. The best times for this are times that are, I've found it, were times that were unscripted. I don't know about you, you've had times in my life. I remember one particular occasion where I was at a friend's house, another brother in the church. I was off at his house and he was preparing 2 sermons for that weekend and he was upstairs. Excuse me. He was upstairs. I was downstairs and I thought I would have an hour or 2 of waiting. Turned into 3 or 4 hours of waiting. So it was unscripted time. And I remember I read for a while. I prayed. I even ended up singing a few songs. I had nothing else to do, nowhere to go. I didn't live in this particular city. And I remember having 3 or 4 hours, and I've never forgotten them 3 or 4 hours, because it felt like that's exactly what I needed. To just be still, not need to be anywhere, not be responsible for anything, not have anyone come and calling my name, looking anything from me. I could just sit there and just be still. And what did I do in that time? I sought God through prayer, study, singing, reflection, meditation. It was totally unscripted. And I've been convicted by times like that in my life because I've realized I need to have scripted time so that I can be still. I need to have time in my diary where I know I take the time to be still. I'm convicting myself as I say this. I know a good friend of mine recently has done this. Many of you know Malcolm Cox. He went off on a retreat, and I know he was sharing about that on his own page on Facebook. Check out Malcolm Cox on Facebook, and you'll find out his own journey in the retreat and the benefits of that. It certainly is something I must look into myself. So having time in our diary that allows us to be still, it's so important. And I've found even recently, and you may have experienced this, our best creative moments, the best creative spark comes about when we are less busy, when we're able to be still. So the onus is on us slightly to get to God, but we need to be still, let the peace of Christ rule in our hearts, and maybe take the initiative, recognize our need. If your need is that you need time to be still, you need refreshed, you need filled up, things are too busy, you've got too many demands, take the initiative, recognize your need, get time away, be still, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. Thanks for tuning in today for this video. If it helped you in any way, please like it and please share it online, helping other people. Please come on and subscribe to that Bible Guy. If you can and you want to support the ministry, check it out on Patreon below. Sign up for just a few pounds a month and you can delete that at any time. Many thanks for listening today. Let's get his word out there.